Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. Today, I will be reading from the r/Raised by Narcissists subreddit, so let's jump into it. Guess whose Christmas is ruined now, Mom? This is gonna be pretty long and inane. I, 30-year-old male, moved from the central US to the northwest coast when I was 22, mostly to get away from my crazy mother. Most of my family were all enablers of her behavior because they found it easier to just go along with it than fight her on it. Save for my 3 older sisters who got out of Dodge because they couldn't take her shit. One of them even moved to Canada. So yeah, I was not only the only boy, but also the youngest, which made me a perpetual baby in my mother's eyes. My mother often tried to infantilize me growing up. She tried to spoon feed me when I was 16, then complained I wasn't being supportive of her when I refused to let her do things like that. Then gaslit me when I didn't cave to her whining. Her behavior has been manipulative and narcissistic for as long as I can remember. She tended to make everything about her. Some referred to her as having a queen mother complex. She always expected to be honored and revered on any holiday, because even my birthdays had to be all about her, even when she did none of the work or planning. She even showed up to my 21st birthday in an outfit that looked a lot like a wedding dress, then expected me to escort her by the arm everywhere from the moment she arrived. We were just celebrating in a local bar, not some sort of fancy club, so that went about as well as you can expect. And she made a huge fuss, saying I was humiliating her on her day. When I remarked that it wasn't her day, it was mine, she threw a tantrum and ran out like a teenage girl who'd just been dumped at the prom. And that wasn't all. She had some other habits that were unbelievably creepy towards me. She attempted to sit in my lap a few times and said she wanted cuddles. I openly called that weird, and she repeated her usual by pouting and gaslighting. When she was 45, she started openly talking to other people near me about wanting to get a facelift and breast implants to look 20 years younger, and she would give me the side eye while talking about it. But my father adamantly said he would never pay for such unneeded things. That sparked many fights where she called him unsupportive, then would spend weeks playing the victim. We were never big churchgoers, but she would drag my father and I to the local Mormon church on random Sundays when she wanted to try and get back at me for not enabling her. We weren't even Mormon, but it was the closest church to us. She once put me on the spot trying to infantilize me in front of an entire congregation of people, and I called her out on what she was really doing. Then I just walked out. That was the last straw, and I moved out to rent a small room at a friend's parents' house for $200 a month. When I was packing to leave, she was begging me to stay almost the entire time. I told her I was her son, not her husband, and I was sick of the creepy way she was acting around me. I had my own life to live after all. She just ran away sobbing, and we didn't talk for months. I learned from my cousin that she was going around saying I'd come running back to her bosom any day, but when I didn't, she lost her shit. My mother, even years after I became an adult, openly talked to me like I was a small child in front of other people and expected me to play along with it. And when I didn't, she would give me an expression like she was pleading with me, but I just stayed stone-faced. That made her grab me by the arm and try to drag me outside like a little kid to loudly whisper in my ear, but I would always refuse to let her, and even threw her off a few times when she refused to let go. And the last time she attempted that, she dug her nails into my shoulder. So I swatted her hand away so hard, there was a bruise left on it. That made her switch to mostly emotional manipulation. Once, we both went to my uncle's birthday party, and while there, she was openly following me around and loudly talking to my aunt about the way I used to breastfeed as a child anytime she was close to me, and even said she lamented she couldn't still make me do that, then gave me that pleading look again. I wanted to throw up. My aunt was visibly disgusted as I'd told her about a lot of the previous things, but I guess she never really believed it was as bad as I said until that day. When I refused to cater to my mother at the party, she eventually broke down and loudly stated that she was the matriarch and that what she says goes. Then tried to order me to come to her like a little boy, to which I reminded her that I did not live with her anymore, nor did I have to do as she said because I wasn't a child. And then several other family members backed me up for the first time, which totally shocked me. That made my mother screech at all of us and then leave, only to call me multiple times later to try and gaslight me over the phone. I let it all go to voicemail. Before making the choice to leave my home city, I had a girlfriend there I really liked. We'd been dating a few months, and she wanted to meet my family. I was skeptical and warned her about my mother, but she must have thought I was joking, because boy was she surprised. My mother was especially passive-aggressive towards her when they met, because she was taking her baby away, as we both heard her say to a relative over the phone in the kitchen when she thought no one else was listening. And then later, while cutting a cake she baked, my mother gave my at-the-time girlfriend an eerie stare while holding a large kitchen knife. Needless to say, that poor girl couldn't deal with my mother for very long, and we ended things amicably soon after because she never wanted to risk having someone like my mother as a mother-in-law. Sadly, I had to completely agree. So when I told my mother I was moving over 1,000 miles away, she went ballistic and tried to latch on to me and say she wouldn't allow it. But I threw her off and said she didn't have the power to stop me. I'd saved as much as I could for years and bought a truck and camper trailer and spent another 2 years living out of said camper while working a simple job in Northern Cali. During this time, I did not bother to keep in contact with any family at all. Eventually, I met someone new, and she and I are still together to this day, though neither of us are really interested in marriage or children. When I finally broke the no contact with my parents in 2016, I laid down some ground rules. They were to treat me with the respect of an adult. They would not pester my girlfriend, and they would not speak to me like a child or bring up anything from my childhood. Well, no surprise, my mother couldn't do any of those when we actually came to visit for Thanksgiving, so I told her I was done and to not bother calling me until she realized I'm a grown-ass man. She tried to block the door and started quoting the Bible about how parents should be respected by their children. I told her she didn't respect me, so why should I respect her? In December of that year, I got multiple calls, emails, and texts from her begging me to come to Christmas and not to bring my girlfriend. I said if she wasn't welcome, then neither was I. She called me unreasonable and called my girlfriend an interloping whore to our special bond, and no woman should come between a mother and her son, then practically ordered me to go. When I refused, she started making empty threats of self-harm. I told her she can do what she likes with her own body, but I would not be coming to Christmas, and would instead be spending it with my girlfriend's family. My mother said I'd regret that decision and ended the call in a rage. Well, 2 days before Christmas, the door to the small house my girlfriend and I were renting was kicked in by police, who were convinced that we were running a meth lab. We were detained and interrogated, while police turned our yard into a veritable flea market, as a lot of our furniture and personal belongings were brought outside and arranged in rows to be inspected. They went through the house with a fine-tooth comb, with drug-sniffing dogs, and found nothing more than aspirin and some medication I had at the time for depression. Needless to say, they were visibly disappointed by that. Guess they'd hoped to get some big drug bust or something. Turns out, this all happened because my crazy mother had called them and gave them details that were so accurate, she had to have been stalking us at some point. She claimed that I was using my camper as a front to sell meth. My guess is she watched a lot of Breaking Bad. When police found nothing in the house, both vehicles and the camper. They were forced to put everything back and let us go. Understandably, we were furious, but I couldn't really do anything other than file a complaint because they'd caused some damage to the house that my landlord was angry about. As a major stroke of karma, my mother was arrested during her own Christmas Day party in front of most of the family. The investigation later showed that she'd taken a flight to my state and then spent a few days following us around, taking pictures of me, my girlfriend, and our home. She'd broken in and photographed everything she could, right down to the underwear in my dresser. That was especially creepy, and police found she documented where I worked and what times my girlfriend and I were usually home or at our jobs. We're not really sure what her overall goal was, but it likely involved more than just trying to give me a scare with the cops. I filed for a restraining order, and my mother spent 2 years in jail for filing a false police report and stalking. While my mother was in lockup, I reconnected with my family, and they all admitted they'd known for years the way she was around me, and they were sorry about not doing anything to help, especially my father. He cried while giving me a huge apology over the phone. He filed for divorce after my mother was released from jail, and in the divorce, my mother got the house, mainly because my father no longer wanted it, and agreed to let her have his share in it in exchange for a clean split. The court ruled he didn't have to pay any alimony anyway, because they were already both retired. So he chose to move closer to me and now lives in the same state out of an Airstream trailer he'd already owned since the 90s along the West Coast. He said he spent his evenings sipping tea and watching the waves, and he couldn't be happier. My mother didn't take the divorce well and tried to draw it out, but several family members came forward with witness statements, and my sisters all showed up to speak about what she was really like, and some relatives even had some recordings about the creepy things my mom used to say. On top of all that, it got out that my mother had not only cheated on my father, but done so multiple times with different men, a few of which came forward during the divorce with proof. The judge ended up refusing to let my mother draw out the divorce any longer, and even her lawyer told her to let it go if she wanted to keep her pension intact. And when it was all over, my mother has basically been left alone in the old family home, and hardly anyone wants anything to do with her anymore. She's reached out to me on several occasions, but I just told her this was the result of her own deeds, and now she'd have to live with it. She tried to say she was getting therapy, but I told her that she should have done that a long time ago, and I really didn't care anymore because she can't undo the things she's already done. She just cried and hung up the phone. I haven't spoken to her since. Jeez. OP, I am so sorry you had to grow up with a woman like this. Her behavior is borderline sexual abuse. Just imagine if a father acted this way towards his daughter. I can almost guarantee that it would not have gone on as long as this did. Ugh. Her behavior is so creepy, and I honestly had chills reading this. And this is definitely more than just an infantilized complex. This is a hardcore case of Jocasta complex. And if you've never heard the term Jocasta, it's a psychoanalytic theory, which is the incestuous sexual desire of a mother towards her son. And in this case, I'm thinking something happened in this mother's life that inhibited her from being able to emotionally and mentally mature, because it's very obvious she is emotionally immature, just going off the way she always throws tantrums and expresses how she wants to look like a teenager. Thus, if she has the mentality of an 18-year-old, that could contribute to why she is attracted to her young son. But regardless, I'm glad OP and his dad got away from this woman, because this case is so bad that in my opinion, it has the potential to turn dangerous, especially for OP's partner. I recommend to OP, he doesn't even tell his mother where he lives, because jealousy has been deadly. People have been murdered before due to the if I can't have you, then nobody can mentality, but maybe I just watch too many many true crime stories, and I hope that's just an overreaction on my part. But you can never be too careful, and I hope OP continues to be careful for his and his partner's safety. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you got some value out of this Raised by Narcissists story. And OP did share his birthday story about his mother showing up to a bar in a wedding dress, so I will read that one for you guys too. Please leave a like and subscribe if you want. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!